Multiversus is a platform fighter created by Player First Game Studios and published by Warner Brothers, featuring characters from a ton of different Warner Brothers properties, including Bugs Bunny, Batman, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, Iron Giant, and even my glorious King Pookie Bear LeBron James. On March 27, 2023, Multiversus players got the news that MVS was going to be shutting down online play on June 25th of the same year, and at that point, all we knew was that it was going to be coming back on some point in early 2024. By the time the open beta was coming to an end, Multiversus was in somewhat of a rough state. Character balance was all over the place, it had fallen out of the mainstream media's attention, and by the end of the beta, most of the FGC basically ignored it. And the netcode, despite relatively low player counts, was bad. And I mean bad.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy.
And those are just a few of the issues that plagued Multiversus at the time. Despite all the shortcomings of Multiversus in the open beta, one thing that most of the community agreed on was that the game did have some really good ideas, and the full release, with a lot of work, really did have potential to be a great game. Fast forward almost a year, and we've made it to May 28th, 2024, the official release date of Multiversus. So, should you play it? Yeah, you should play it, but with a few caveats. Let me explain what I mean. The first thing I want to go over is technically something that doesn't have anything to do with actual gameplay or content, and that's the netcode. It's no surprise to anyone that played Multiversus during the open beta that the netcode was one of the biggest reasons the game wasn't in a good state. The beta launched with bad netcode, and people were mostly understanding when the game came out and there were almost 200,000 players on at once. The community was much less understanding of the bad netcode by the end of the beta when player numbers were significantly lower. Unless you genuinely loved the game, dealing with the netcode just was not worth it, and nobody took online competition seriously. Tournaments often came down to who had the better connection that day. Around a month before release, they made a Twitter post explicitly saying that the netcode in the official release would be world class. This sounded amazing, but it's not really something we could verify without having the game on our hands. Knowing personally how rough it was back then, I'm very, very happy to say that the netcode is amazing. For the entire launch day, I only had noticeable lag in one game and like a 7-hour gameplay session, which is more than forgivable when you, again, almost have 200,000 players on at once. Since launch day, I've only lagged less than a handful of times, and they were very minor and not at all game altering, and I've also talked to others, and they said they've had similar experiences with the netcode. I also played some custom matches with an EU player, and we played 3 games, all of which were pretty playable. They had a slight delay, and it's not something I'd really want to play tournaments on, but if you want to play cross-region, you absolutely can with mostly no issues, which is incredible. I will say that Xbox players have been more prone to connection issues, but it's something that Multiversus and PFG know about, and they've publicly stated that they're working on it. Other than that, you should have basically no connection issues 99% of the time. Overall, the netcode has definitely improved to a point where online is a viable and pretty fun way to play. I wanted to get that out of the way because it's what drove a lot of players away from the open beta. With that out of the way, we can get into the actual content. One of the things that Multiversus came back with in full force was the casual content. Up until about a few weeks before release, all we really knew about it was that there would be more casual content in the full game. What they've come back with are rifts. As PFG describes them, Rifts mode is a way for all players to jump into Multiversus and progress their skills outside of our competitive PvP modes. Each rift will have a sequence of battles or challenges around a particular theme, whether it's the Joker infiltrating the Batcave or Batman and Velma teaming up to decide who's the best detective. The same way every Multiversus battle is bubbling with character interactions, we wanted to make each rift uniquely Multiversus every season. So the game launched with 2 rifts, and they have different themes and even their own animated shorts. The animated shorts are amazing, by the way. Massive shout out to the team for making the animation so good. Something else Multiversus does really well is having all of the characters interact with each other and really capturing the personality of each character between the in-game voice lines and really the overall good voice acting in general, really. The rift storylines, the animated shorts, the game does an absolutely incredible job of making the characters actually feel alive. I'm getting a little off topic, I know I'm talking about rifts, but I really wanted to talk about it somewhere because I think MVS has a ton of personality that makes interacting with the game really, really fun. Anyways, rifts are essentially a collection of levels, each with their own different kinds of challenges. Most of the levels are fighting an AI enemy, but there's also quite a few special levels such as shooting targets with a cannon, popping a giant balloon to get as much money as possible, or going around breaking targets like the Target Smash mode in Super Smash Bros. Each level has optional challenges such as doing a certain attack 10 times or winning with a certain character. The more challenges you do, the more gems you get, which are essentially modifiers for Rift levels. You can kind of think of gems as the perks for your character in Rift mode, but with more specific and powerful effects. The rifts also give pretty decent rewards outside of gems as well. You can earn Battle Pass XP, character skins, and at the moment, there's an event that'll allow players to unlock Agent Smith up to 2 weeks earlier than the official release, which is pretty cool. You can also do all of them with friends, which can make for some pretty fun co-op moments. As somebody who doesn't really typically engage in casual content in fighting games, I personally think that doing the rifts is actually quite a bit of fun. When I was originally planning this video, I only planned to play enough rift levels to get a decent understanding of the game mode, but I actually ended up playing a lot more than I thought, and I ended up actually finishing a rift on one of the available difficulties. Being able to boot up Multiversus and just relax playing rift mode is something I could realistically see myself doing, at least for now. The rifts have a lot of content that's actually worth going through, in addition to the PvP aspects of the game. They're also going to be continuously updated, and every week to every few weeks there'll be a new addition to rifts, which is pretty cool. What's up? Little intermission. So I was doing some more research on Rift while I was editing this video, and I learned that Rift mode, especially at later difficulties, involves some kind of bad monetization practices, which always sucks. For example, apparently there's some missions locked behind specific skins, so you have to use your currency to buy that skin if you want to do that mission, which is not great. I do still think that for the most part, Rifts are pretty fun content, but if you're trying to get really deep into them, you should probably just be aware that you might run into some of this kind of stuff. I don't want to go too into detail about it because it's kind of a lot, but if you really want to know more, I'll leave a Reddit post that kind of goes over everything in the description. So just quick update on that. Anyways, back to the video. The fact that Multiversus is published by Warner Bros. Means that there's basically a limitless amount of character reps that we can get into the game as well. The game was released with a new character, Jason from Friday the 13th, and soon players will also have access to Agent Smith from The Matrix. Warner Bros. Have a lot of powerful IPs that can make it into Multiversus, so there's a lot to look forward to character-wise. And that's not even covering the characters already in the game, which covers a lot of different characters from a lot of different franchises. PFG themselves have also stated that they would love to get some anime characters in, and also some more third-party characters into Multiversus. So who knows, in a few years we'll be seeing a Goku vs. Walter White Grand Finals. They've also changed and completely overhauled a lot of the previous gameplay mechanics, and I think that the changes they've made are generally for the better. The biggest gameplay related change that was made from the open beta, and probably the most controversial change they've made, was slowing down the game speed. In the beta, Multiversus was generally a very fast-paced game in every capacity. Movement speed was high, there wasn't much end lag on most moves, and you could dodge and attack at the same time. This resulted in a game where every option was non-committal, and even if an opponent whiffed an attack, there wasn't a proper punish window. Coming into the full release, the movement speed is slower, and attacks generally have more end lag and are more committal, giving you appropriate opportunities to actually punish your opponent. While I think the slower pace is good, as it forces you to think about what options you use, a lot of people feel that it's way too slow, and it feels like your frame rate's low. I don't think it's that bad personally, but I also wouldn't really be opposed to them speeding up the game speed by 10 to 20%. The new game speed is definitely going to be a turnoff for some people, especially for people who enjoyed the fast-paced gameplay of the open beta, but if you can get past that learning curve, I personally think there's a lot of rewarding gameplay that actually incentivizes thinking about your options before you throw them out. In addition to the game speed, they also introduced dash attacks and parrying. Dash attacks fit into the game great, especially considering the fact that the game is slower, so you need a lot more entry tools. Parrying is also a good addition to the game that heightens the skill ceiling with a good high-risk, high-reward mechanic. People were asking for more defensive options in the beta, and now this is one of them. The dodge meter also underwent a bunch of changes. With the new dodge system, you have 6 dodge meter bars, and when you run out, you'll enter burnout and can no longer get invincibility frames or activate a parry until your entire bar is replenished. I think the system works pretty good because you have to actively decide if you want to use your dodge offensively to continue combo strings or defensively to avoid damage. There's a level of commitment and decision making to dodging, which is much different from the open beta. One of the last major things that they changed from the open beta was the perk system. For those who don't know, perks are minor gameplay modifiers that you can apply to your character. In the beta, there were almost 50 perks, but many of them were essentially useless, so it always came down to using a select few anyways. Triple jump was used 100% of the time, along with 5 or 6 other perks depending on the situation. The full release of Multiversus has a lot less perks, but they're generally more impactful. There's a level of risk and reward for choosing one perk over another, which I think is good. There's also perk loadouts, so you can have different loadouts for different situations. Although having perk loadouts is really nice, they remove the ability to change perks in between games, and you can only choose perks from your set loadouts, which kind of feels like a regression from the beta, which allowed you to choose perks you owned in between games. I think it'd be a better system to still have the option to change your perk lineup in between games, while also having the ability to create perk loadouts to streamline the pre-game process. It's not a perfect system, but PFG has definitely made some positive changes to perks. Between the new netcode, the improved gameplay, and everything else they've changed, there's a lot to praise PFG for, but I feel like it wouldn't really be fair to give a recommendation without talking about the negative aspects, and although I think Multiversus currently does have a lot going for it, there were changes made to the game for the worse. These are going to be those caveats I was talking about at the beginning of the video. So Multiversus provides a lot of its cosmetic rewards from a battle pass system. I haven't mentioned it yet because it's for the most part fine. There's nothing particularly jaw-dropping about the way Multiversus does battle passes. We all know how they work at this point. It's 2024. Something that people may have an issue with is having characters locked behind battle passes. While I also don't particularly like that, and I'm sure nobody really does, Multiversus does make it pretty tolerable to deal with. Firstly, all open beta players get the first battle pass for free, which has Jason in it. The amount of premium currency in each battle pass is enough to buy the next battle pass, so if you were an open beta player, in theory, you don't ever have to shell out actual money to get the battle pass. Even if you weren't an open beta player, the free battle pass has a lesser amount of premium currency, so if you save up for a few seasons, you can buy the premium battle pass without spending real money. And after all of that, new characters can still be unlocked after the battle pass is over. If having characters locked behind battle passes is something you can't really get past, then that's totally understandable, but I think the way it's implemented does make it tolerable. There's also a few things that were taken out of the full release that did exist in the open beta. PFG developer Tony has stated that the reason some features and modes were removed was because of the move to Unreal Engine 5 and how they have to rebuild a lot of these features for the new release. But for now, there is currently no co-op versus AI mode, some quality of life options have been removed, such as swapping your neutral and side attack buttons, and the big thing that people want, ranked mode, is also not in the game just yet. Again, they're all confirmed to be coming, but we'll just have to wait and see when. Another thing that has arguably gotten a bit worse from the beta is the UI, which is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but it's definitely something that could be improved on. At least to me, it seems pretty obvious that they were going for the Fortnite classic live service game UI. It also looks like it could be a mobile game UI, which has spawned some theories that they made it look this way because they're preparing to port Multiversus to mobile at some point, but that's currently just speculation. I'm not particularly bothered by the aesthetics of the UI, but the updated menus have made it less efficient to do some things when navigating the game, like choosing your character and claiming your battle pass rewards. Again, not a major issue, but it would be nice to see the UI aesthetically and functionally improved. One more small thing that could be improved on is the camera. It's something a lot of people have complained about, and while I got used to it and don't think it's that bad, it does sometimes cause you to get hit by projectiles that are off screen. If they could zoom out the camera a bit, or at least add a settings option to do so, I'd be happy. Okay, with all that out of the way, I gotta talk about something I've been avoiding until now, and that is game balance. Alright, before I get into it, I just want to make a quick disclaimer. I am not a developer. I am sure being a developer is difficult. I am sure balancing a video game is difficult. I am just a stupid guy on the internet who is sharing his opinions, alright? Now, with that out of the way, we can talk about balance. And I'll start with the good stuff, because there is good stuff. I think that for the most part, when the gameplay feels good, it feels really good. Like really, really good. The core gameplay loop is extremely fun and satisfying when it's working the way I think PFG envisions it. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest gameplay issues that plagued the open beta was that just everything was non-committal and there was no risk to throwing out strong moves. And PFG has honestly done a lot to improve that. There's actually neutral, there's footsies, and in general, the game requires you to think about your options a lot more than it used to. We're past the days of spamming options and then dodging immediately after. They also changed a lot of characters so that their kits are in a healthier state. In the open beta, a lot of the cast felt like they had way too many options and were generally just too good at too many things. They've done a lot of tuning down to make characters' kits feel better to play against and less overbearing, while still keeping the character mostly the same. They have strengths, weaknesses, and their own unique gimmicks that make them healthy additions to the roster. The problem is that there are just far too many balance issues that disrupt this ideal gameplay loop. This is the bad balance stuff. One of these problems is the presence of infinites. Unfortunately, in the full release of Multiversus, there are some characters that have infinite combos. This is a pretty big issue in the open beta, and PFG knew that, so it's really, really surprising and kind of unfortunate to see that they are still an issue. It'd be different if they were something like pseudo-infinites, or even if they were just infinite combos that are at least difficult to pull off. The infinite combos present in this game are absolutely absurd. If you haven't seen them yet, let me just show you one that Iron Giant has.
Bro, what? What?
And if you think that's bad enough, that's just one infinite of the 3 or 4 that he has. That's not the only character that has them either, but you get the point. Fortunately, PFG does know about the existence of these infinites and is working hard to address them, and as of the release of this video, he's not playable right now, but the fact that these made it into the game at all is honestly insane to me. To be fair, it is funny to hit somebody with Iron Giant Infinites in casual queue, but the fact that they exist is a little disappointing coming from a competitive standpoint. While we're on the topic of Iron Giant, his character, in addition to the funny infinites, has a plethora of other problems, including a lot of dishonest hitboxes, which make it basically impossible to parry certain Iron Giant moves, and his Transformation Rage mode, which essentially is a move that gives you infinite pressure, especially in 2s, and can just kill you instantly, and that's just the tip of the iceberg for Iron Giant really. Another issue that has honestly existed since the open beta as well is the top tiers being basically untouchable to the rest of the cast. One character in particular I want to focus on is a Wonder Woman. She's been a top tier character, especially in doubles, since the first publicly available version of this game, which at this point has been over 2 years and is still top tier now. Now this is not inherently a problem, and if Wonder Woman was a healthy, keyword healthy top tier, I wouldn't really be complaining about it. Wonder Woman unfortunately is great at everything, and she's just far too overtuned in comparison to the rest of the cast. Fundamentally, with the way her kit works, she will probably always be at the very least very good, and again, that's not an issue, but she's dominated the top levels of the game throughout the game's entire lifespan, and it's a little frustrating to see her remain mostly untouched and actually getting buffed in some parts of her kit in the full release. Just to really get the point across, this was the character breakdown for the top 64 of our major Multiversus Week 1 tournament. 16 out of 64 people played Wonder Woman. 25% of players in top 64 played Wonder Woman. The next closest was Harley and Joker with 8 players each. Now look, I know that character popularity doesn't always reflect character strength, but when the stats are this blatant, you can't really ignore them. Sorry, that top 64 breakdown is just absolutely absurd. Anyways, for my mental health, I'm gonna stop talking about Wonder Woman and move on. Something else that's also particularly frustrating about Multiversus balance is that it seems to just have an aversion to letting a lot of characters, especially ones that have easy game plans, to actually have defined weaknesses. The perfect example of this right now is Banana Guard. He is, at least to most of the community, supposed to be a gag character, but he's actually dominating the meta right now, and unfortunately, it's not because he has some secret hidden tech or is actually really powerful in the right hands, it's because of this.
Good job, team.
I'm fine. Happens all the time.
Congratulations on...
And some of you may be thinking, oh, this is just a low elo game. This doesn't happen at high levels. You are wrong. This happens at every level of the game, especially in 2s where it's harder to punish individual options. And that's not even the worst of it. His grounded and aerial side specials are just as bad. Right now, a meta strategy is to play Banana Guard, side special, side air, and win the game. It's frustrating because some characters like Garnet, Finn, Batman, they feel like they're for the most part really strong and have defined strengths and weaknesses that make them well-rounded characters. And then you have Banana Guard who can dominate while, I don't know, eating crayons. And this isn't even defendable from a casual standpoint, because if someone is playing the game for the first time and loses to something like this, they're uninstalling. I hope that they fix this by bringing down the level of the top tiers instead of trying to buff everyone to their level, because a lot of the characters that aren't broken right now feel really good and really balanced. Anyways, there's also a laundry list of other balance issues, which, to be fair, are not as major as the other ones, but still detract from the overall gameplay experience. One of them is hitboxes. Like I said, Iron Giant hitboxes are pretty bad, but other characters have some pretty dishonest ones as well, like Steven's side air is a good example of that. They're definitely an improvement from the open beta, but some work still needs to be done on those. Another is just overtuned individual moves on some characters as well. Bringing up Steven again, his down air has so little end lag that you can just combo chain it into each other, which is another one of those things that I don't really even understand how it made it into the final cut of the game at all. There's some other minor things I could address, but I think the point is made. Right now, even though they've definitely made some major improvements to enhance the competitive experience from the open beta, there's just way too many problems for me to be able to comfortably recommend this game from a competitive standpoint. And that really sucks, because I really like this game and think it has a lot of potential from a competitive standpoint, but we're just not there yet. And let me be perfectly clear, I'm not trying to discredit PFG or make them look bad at all. Like I said, I'm sure being a game developer is hard, I'm sure balancing a game like this is very difficult. I'm just overall a little disappointed by a lot of the issues that are still in the game. The good news, however, is that I think Multiversus set a pretty good foundation for itself, so a lot of these problems, if not all of them to be honest, are very fixable, and the overall gameplay experience should skyrocket. So, factoring in both the good and the bad, I would still honestly recommend this game. I know that coming off of the topic of balance, it seems like I was just absolutely bashing on the game, but I really do think there's a ton of fun to be had here, and that with a little bit of time, it will only get better and better. Although I think that the release patch is not great for the competitive experience, especially in doubles, it's something that PFG will improve, and until then, playing the game for fun and engaging in the other content is really satisfying. If you like fighting games or are fans of any of the characters in the game, you should at the very least try it out. Player First Games has also shown that they're 100% dedicated to making Multiversus the best game they can, and if you follow any of the PFG team on social media, it's 100% clear that this is a passion project, and it's hard to not want to support that. What's up? If you've made it this far, that means you have listened to like 20 minutes of me rambling about the funny internet Warner Brothers game. So for one, thank you. I appreciate that you've made it this far and hopefully enjoyed the video. You know, if you liked it, smash that like button. If you disliked it, smash that dislike button, I guess, do you. But yeah, this is my first video I've ever like edited and really sat down and recorded, so big learning experience. I got this video out like way later than I wanted to be honest. The script just kind of kept getting longer and longer, and here we are. But I'm happy with how it turned out, and hopefully you guys enjoy it too. Gonna get some more videos out hopefully. One a week would be nice. That's wishful thinking, but one a week would be nice. But anyways, I don't want to make this outro too long. I'm kind of just yapping at this point. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.